I'm John Oceans, and welcome to Schooling Around. As you head east from Lapeer Road on Drainer Road at the edge of Oxford, you could very easily think you were driving in some remote area up north. Drainer Road becomes dirt, trees become lakes, then back again. You could very easily visualize driving to the family cabin in the woods. This is the environment of an organization called Crossroads for Youth and the Crossroads for Youth High School. It all began in the early 50s as Camp Oakland. A group of civic-minded leaders wanted to create a positive environment for children, focusing on education, positive thinking, respect for others, a strong work ethic, and discipline. A judge who was involved said, "Courts must do more for children than the serving of judgments, decrees, and mandates. It mainly serves the needs of troubled youths assigned there by the courts. There is also a smaller number of kids without foster homes who stay longer." Crossroads for Youth has two parts. The main one is the agency. This organization provides day treatment, supervised independent living, a boys and girls center, and an achievement center, which is a highly structured program for young men 15 to 17. Also, there's an adventure center offering recreational facilities to the general public for a fee. The other part of Crossroads for Youth is the high school. It's really more than just a high school. Kids grades 6 through 12 go there. Most are placed there by the courts for minor offenses, some from the Department of Human Services due to abuse and neglect. It's an interesting mix of kids requiring a special set of teacher talents. We'll begin our journey in a moment. Because the grounds are located in Oxford, the original Crossroads High School was run by the Oxford School District for many years. Talitha VanLuzon, who is now principal of our Bridges High School, was a social worker there off and on from 1999 to 2013. She explains the makeup of the school.
Right, at one time we had as many as 130 kids approximately there. And just the changes that have occurred on several grounds, basically, things that have occurred. There is probably about 50 kids there currently.
Okay. And the makeup of that student population, this is primarily kids who were put there by the court system?
Right, for the most part, the kids there are adjudicated, which means they have been in trouble with the court. They have delinquent histories. There are some students there who do not have, they're what they call Department of Human Service kids, DHS kids, and those kids do not have a stable home. However, they are in residential placement because they're not necessarily suitable for foster care either because of their issues.
Now, are those kids that you just mentioned, are they more likely to be there for a longer period of time than the ones that are otherwise assigned by the courts? Or?
A longer period of time, meaning that they might be there for a year as opposed to possibly 6 months, yes. There have been occasion where there's been students who have been there for an extended length of time, 2 years and 3 years, but those are few and far between. That is not a common practice.
And do all these kids live there on the grounds?
No, there is a program that it's a day treatment program, and the day treatment program is for kids who are not attending school, have incorrigibility issues at home, incorrigibility issues at school. They come only for the day. So they come at 8 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and they are there till 5 o'clock at night, and then they go home.
So they live in their own homes?
They live in their own home, and then they also come on Saturday. It's considered an intensive treatment program.
I know this is an ever-changing thing, and it's hard to put a number on it, but just take a wild guess. What percentage of that 50 would you say falls into that category?
The day students?
Yeah.
Probably about a third.
She gives us her explanation of Crossroads High School.
portion. One of the things that gets really confusing is because it's been called Crossroads for Youth is does the school run Crossroads for Youth or does Crossroads for Youth run the school? Oxford Schools and Crossroads for Youth are two separate entities.
Right.
There is the school program that Oxford provides education to, and then there's the residential or the day treatment program that Crossroads for Youth is responsible for and runs.
Right.
So it actually should be a collaboration because it is a treatment program. It should be a collaboration between Oxford Schools and Crossroads for Youth for the best treatment for children so that they can get the treatment they need and return back to the community and be successful.
Okay. Mike Schwag recently became an Oxford School Board member. He was principal of Crossroads High School from 2011 to 2013. He speaks to some of the unique challenges there.
Well, I think initially it's motivating students who are there because of difficulties that they've had and challenges in their life, not only academically or educationally, but socially. And the kids that are at Crossroads for Youth are there to get like a second chance in terms of recovering from episodes that have happened in their life and with their families. And they're court ordered there.
All of them are court ordered?
Many of them, yes.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about a school that averages about 50 kids or something like that?
Yes, and based on the enrollment and some kids that attend there under a variety of circumstances, years ago there were upwards of 120 students there. And that was, I think, about 15 years ago.
What changed that?
I think funding in social programming, because kids have to be assigned there, and then there were some students, I believe, earlier in years that were there that they funded themselves or their families funded their education there. I think it goes back to those times that did occur too.
Then in 2013, something happened. The Crossroads for Youth Agency decided to enter into an agreement with a group called CS Partners to form a charter school. Well, in fact, it had been something in the planning stages for quite a while, but more on that later. Back in a moment. Talitha VanLuzon was a social worker at Crossroads when word came that it would become a charter school. She gives her thoughts.
We never saw that they were going to go to a charter school. Actually, that information came through an undisclosed person and went to our assistant superintendent and superintendent in like October of 2012. They had been well into the process by that point and were waiting for actually approval. So they had already been into the process of obtaining a charter school status for probably a year.
I asked Talitha what was going through the teachers' minds at the time.
Yes, we were very concerned whether we would have jobs. Because at the time also legislation had changed with regards to seniority. And so as far as legislation changing for teaching staff and union in the education field, what had changed was they no longer, at one time seniority was the be-all end-all. When it came to laying off staff, if you were the senior staff, you were the last to go.
Yeah. Are you talking like a tenure situation or something like that?
Yeah, as unions do. When you're in a union, you're protected by your length of seniority. However, legislation changed, and what the legislation said is seniority now is the last thing that they look at, how long you've been on the job, but they also look at evaluations, they look at your involvement in the district, and several other things. So we were very concerned as to whether we would have jobs because that was the first time that Oxford schools had had to use the new legislation in laying off people.
Were there concerns as far as the kids were concerned? I mean about what the changes would mean to them?
Yes. Oh, yes.
When- can you
There was a
remember
lot
any
of
of those?
concern. You know, they were very comfortable with us. The kids were very comfortable with us, and yes, I know they change over all the time. But the one thing in working with students who are at risk is consistency. And when you disrupt or, you know, introduce a chaotic kind of situation and the students don't know what's going to happen, that usually increases behavior problems because it increases stress for the kids. So, you know, they were very worried, and we didn't have any answers to any questions. We were not privy to any information. So we had no idea how many teachers they were going to have. We had no idea how the classrooms were going to look. We had no idea what types of teachers they were going to have. We had no idea of what the school was going to look at like. So the kids were in the dark, and that causes a lot of anxiety. You know, I mean, even for healthy people, change sometimes can be anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
When you are not a healthy person, then that is just the cause for so much more anxiety.
I asked Principal Schwag if he was surprised.
From a financial standpoint and from a new opportunity, no. I guess if as a principal and with the employees from the Oxford School District who work there, it hurt because I knew that a lot of things would be changing in terms of employment.
Right.
And also, therefore, a new company coming in, the pay is going to be different. And usually, in those kinds of situations, it comes in at less of a hourly wage than some people may have been earning before. So for that aspect of it, it was troubling to me. But I guess from the opportunity to look at Crossroads for Youth and a different way to educate those kids, it was an opportunity for them to go forward in a new direction.
Did it surprise you that it fell apart?
I thought that they had a stronger foundation when they were going in there, but as the year went on, and I didn't keep real close track with it, but as I found out later, there were probably some missteps that occurred, and I would guess just attributed to inexperience in dealing with students of this nature. I don't think that they were prepared in terms of the company. I know they have some other charter schools that they run that they do well, but in this particular area, it just didn't seem to work for them.
Schwag talks more about the charter system.
It has to be, the charter has to be endorsed by educational agency, and Central Michigan University did that, and they've have a lot of experience in working with charter schools. And I believe it's Charter School Partners, which has, I guess, a number of charter schools that they operate, was the agency who was called the educational service provider. So they provide those services, and they run a complete plan through Central Michigan University. Central Michigan University documents that and to a reasonable assurance of success and monitors the situation along with the Crossroads for Youth agency to see how things are going. And I think in this instance, the profitability wasn't there for the charter school to keep going.
Principal Schwag has nothing but good to say about the agency itself.
Well, I guess the biggest observation would be that the amount of commitment and dedication that Crossroads for Youth, the agency, puts in to doing everything they can to make these kids successful experiences while they're there, and look for opportunities for them to become more familiar with everyday type of life experiences through field trips and things. They put in a lot of effort to that. It's a very difficult population of students to work with, and through that you have to keep a very, I guess, positive attitude. And from the people that I came in contact with out there on a daily basis, I did see that they were very positive orientated and worked in that fashion.
So, after many years in charge of the Crossroads High School, the program changes. Teachers are looking for jobs, and the Oxford School District is no longer in control. More after this.
Hi everyone. Don't forget you can purchase DVDs of your favorite shows from OCTV, whether it's Minutes by Minute, Our Community Access, or Connie's Kitchen. just call the station. Our number is 248-628-9658. Enjoy watching all of our shows on OCTV.
Dr. William Skilling is the Oxford Superintendent of Schools. He was in charge of our district when these changes occurred. Some thoughts.
And the thing is as a district, we're accountable for test scores for these kids, even though these are high at-risk kids. We don't have them very long in our care. And so it's always been a challenge for us, and it gets mixed into our scores and so on. So from that standpoint, it was, we didn't like that aspect of it. But on the other side of it, every child needs a quality education, and we want to do the best for those students, regardless of their background and baggage that they may have. And there are many, many success stories of kids going on and being successful and turning things around. And then a year ago, last summer, at a very late date, we heard that, or a rumor mill, that they were going to go with a charter school and we would no longer be responsible for the education. And we were fine with that, because as long as the kids had opportunity to be educated and that was being taken care of, and then we don't have to worry about the test scores affecting us anymore. So we thought that was a really good thing.
And there's a budgetary concern too, right?
It's a budgetary concern because it's very costly for us, and so ideally it's supposed to cover itself, but it doesn't always work out that way. It won't work out that way this year either. And so then we heard, again, it was through a rumor mill, we had to explore it for ourselves, that the charter school that took over is pulling out. They weren't making it financially, academically, it was not going well. It just was not a good
situation. Why do you
situation.
think they made the decision to go with a charter school?
I don't know. I've never asked. I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't raise funds for them, does it?
Again, I don't know their business model at Crossroads. We're just a provider of education. I would imagine there was some sort of incentive for them to do that. What that incentive is, I'm not sure. It might have been financial. I don't know. But it didn't work out. And so come, I think, July is when we realized we're taking this back over. And so we had to really scramble.
So when was it, how did you get word for the first time officially that this was being put back on your plate?
Well, it was difficult for us to get official word, because when we heard the rumor mill, they wouldn't really let us know for certain. It was like, I don't know, it was difficult to really know for certain.
So did you start making, when you started hearing rumors, did you start making phone calls saying, what the heck's going on over there?
Well, Denise Sweet looked into it and tried to figure out whether or not we'd be taking this over, as well as Jim Schwartz. And finally, we did get confirmation. We actually sent somebody to their board meeting to verify that, in fact, we were taking this back over. Once we knew that we were taking it over, they worked very cooperatively with us in making this transition. Mark Porter has done a great job. He's a vice president there that we worked with, and collaborating and making this work. And one of the things we wanted to do is we really wanted to change the environment over there, and so these kids that came there could be proud of their educational environment, and Mark and the people he reports to felt the same way, and so they did a great job of really cleaning the building up.
Next, what next? Denise Sweet is the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. I asked her what went through her mind when she learned of this.
I guess the first thing that went through my mind was, what are we going to do differently to make the school a successful school that children coming from an adjudicated youth setting could succeed and get a diploma and have an education that was meaningful. And what were we going to do to create an opportunity for them to be successful?
So very definitely, you looked at this as an opportunity.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And as a challenge, certainly.
Oh, absolutely, because
You had to bring a lot of things together.
in a very short time.
Okay. For example, there were teachers here under the charter school system, but what happened to them? Did they leave? Did
They left.
Okay.
They were employees of the charter school, so it was our responsibility to, hire a principal, hire staff, hire teachers.
So you had to start from scratch with
Correct.
that.
Finding good teachers was a primary concern.
So when we closed, when Oxford closed the school, the teachers that were here were placed back out in Oxford community schools. Some teachers took elementary, high school, special education positions. So when we closed, those teachers went back out to our public schools. So when we reopened, those positions were posted, and two of the teachers that had been here previously chose to apply to come back.
There was also concern about getting the curriculum right.
Well, we looked at the Michigan Merit Curriculum. How were we going to provide access to that curriculum for students? We looked at the fact that students typically are coming lacking credits towards that general education diploma. So how are we going to embed a credit recovery component? How can we utilize technology and online learning to create a program that could best meet the needs of students that seem to come and go quickly. They may be here for 30 days, they may be here for 6 months. Some students are here for several years. So how can we develop a program that's going to meet the needs of meet all of their needs at the same time working towards that diploma?
Not an easy job, is it? And I want to talk more about that in a minute, but while we're talking about putting things together, Andrew and virtual ed had to have a lot to do with that too, huh?
We looked at a program that would blend seated learning with an online component, so the students have access to a full array of programs or curriculum.
Shelley Chapman is the new principal of Crossroads High School. She talks about some of the challenges and programs.
We have lots of interesting children here. They're great kids, and the majority of them stay here through the court for an average of 4 to 6 months is their average length of stay, the kids that are placed here through the juvenile justice system. So that being said, they come and go because sometimes they move to other programs. Sometimes we get kids that are coming out of other programs and then are moving their placements here. So there's a turnover of kids, but I mean, for the most part, they're great kids. They've all had some particularly hard challenges in life for the most part, not solid, family systems and a lot of socioeconomically challenged students, but they're great kids.
Do most of these kids live on campus?
The majority of them do live here as residents. We have 4 separate programs that the agency runs. One is a girls' center program, it's a residential program. One is a boys' center program, that's a residential program for boys. We have an achievement center, which is more of like a structured kind of military type style program. And then we have a new program that we're running called it's Adams House, and it's a DHS house for girls. For
DHS?
Department of Human Services. For girls. And then we have a day program where the kids come during the day, they go to school here. It's called a learning center. They come in the morning, they go do school, they have some therapeutic interventions back with the agency, and then they go home at night. So those kids come just during the day and don't live here.
I know it's hard to make a general statement, but is there something in general you can say to qualify those kids who are only here during the day as opposed to the ones who live here all the time?
It's like a continuum of service, The Learning Center students are kids that don't necessarily have to be removed from their homes. It's kind of the first thing that they do with a kid in the court system, is that they'll put them in just a day program so that they can go home at night, get the treatment that they need, get the schooling that they need, but they're not to such a level that they have to be removed from their home. So it's kind of, it goes from least restrictive to a more restrictive.
Okay. And do they keep the girls and the guys separate in the school, or do they?
All the kids are in blended classrooms
They
here. We have small class sizes here, 12 to 15 kids in a class with a teacher, a teaching assistant.
Teacher qualifications are important too.
So all of the teachers are special education endorsed. So they all have to hold a special education endorsement, and then they all are highly qualified in a core content area in order to teach the Michigan Merit Curriculum.
So we have teachers that, we have a teacher that is highly qualified to teach mathematics, and so that teacher teaches all of our math courses. We have one for the social studies and teaches like our history, geography, civics, econ, another one that does all of our English language arts, and a science teacher who teaches biology and environmental science and forensic science, and then we have a GED preparation program, because we have, that's a really unique part of our program that is really important for some of our older kids who come that will be, close to 18 years of age, and will have court orders to obtain their GED prior to being able to get out of the court system. It's a requirement of the court. So we have a teacher that teaches a GED preparation class, and he also teaches, highly qualified to teach physical education and health. So we're pretty lucky. We have
So there are kids who are sent here to graduate.
Yes, yeah, they could graduate.
So you do have graduates from this school.
We will.
We asked about how the kids are transitioned back to the regular system.
We work as a team. We have a full-time social worker and a psychologist and myself. So each student here also has a therapist that works for the agency. So when it comes time for the student to be released, we know about when they're going to be released usually, and myself or the social worker will make a call to their school that they're transitioning back to. We've had meetings with the school that they're transitioning back to, and make sure that we have all their transcripts in order so that it's as smooth a transition as possible.
Sweet and Chapman also talked about goals and feelings.
We're working on a summer school component right now.
Oh, really?
To provide some summer school for students. We're looking at some, is it possible to bring some vocational training programs here?
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
So we're looking at those things as future goals.
I just think that everybody, it's been an awesome opportunity. We've done some really great things in the 4 months that we've been in operation. We've had, we do a lot of collaborative stuff.
That's what I was going to say. The collaboration between the agency
and the
school district is something that I'm proud of. That wasn't a strength in the past. In the past, it was more like this was the agency and this is what they did, and this was Oxford Schools and this is what we did. And I think now they have a very strong working relationship between the agency and Shelley.
We contacted Dr. Janet McPeak, president of Crossroads for Youth Agency. She said that the Deer Path School Board, which was in control of the charter, made the decision to dissolve it because the need for the school had changed since the planning and initial application process had begun more than 6 years prior. Thanks to Kyle at the controls, Dan at the editing desk, and you for watching. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.